find strength in being here together today. We invite you up to the chalice table to place stones in the water for the joys and sorrows you carry with you today. You can place red for joy, pink for concern, and white for sorrow. If you are on Zoom, we will say your name and put a stone in for you so that we know you are here with us, so that you know we are together. If you do not want your name said, please say so in the chat. If you want a specific stone color put in for you, please say so in the chat. Otherwise, we will put in a red stone for you because it is a joy to have you with us virtually.
Love makes a bridge from heart to heart.
all for joining us today. What does it take to widen our circle of care and build a community? Let's start with love. It's the main ingredient, for sure. Without love, we have nothing. It's that simple. We wouldn't be here without it. From our love comes kindness. If we're not kind to one another, why would we even bother to show up? From love and kindness, we build relationships. Those relationships are the glue that hold us together. Throw in our search for spiritual meaning and our passion for justice seeking, and we've got ourselves a Unitarian Universalist community. Now, how hard was that? Well, I've been around this place for 15 years. At this point in time, there's only a handful of you that can say you've been here longer. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying, I've seen some things. I've seen how hard this community building thing is once we get past those basic ingredients and start throwing in the spice. The recipe becomes complicated. Unitarian Universalists tend to have a fierce independent thinking streak and a stubborn need to say what we think even when we should be listening and reflecting instead. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes not. I definitely can spice things up a bit. Austin Channing Brown, an author and producer whose work centers the Black experience in America, says, "We all get shit wrong. So the question is, have you built the capacity to care more about others than you care about your own ego? Will you choose to protect someone else over your own ego?" Turns out that as we address the complexity of this community building thing, we can recognize this as an issue that pervades most of America. In this country, in the times we have grown up in, we have not learned, implicitly or explicitly, how to do that very well. How to be vulnerable enough to be wrong, to protect someone else over our own fragile ego. This is true in small communities where we appear to have much in common. And it is especially true when we come from different cultures and when we have to face the issues of racism. Our egos can be like the spice that heat things up, and when you throw in too much heat, we all get burned. And who wants to eat that dish again? It's complicated to keep a balance between respecting our own individual needs, our own self-care, and respecting and caring for others and the community. But I've watched egos tear at the fabric of this community by burning away the love and kindness that we said we had. There were times when all we could taste was the heat and not the sweetness of our relationships. There were times when we valued our own egos, our own needs and desires with such stubbornness that we forgot that we are here to build community. We forgot to balance respecting our own desires with that higher cause of greater understanding. There were times when we forgot that our differences were actually the seeds of our growth and creativity. And instead we let our egos burn away at the potential of a perfectly blended, complex taste of a community with a diversity of people with different needs and desires and experiences, people with different perspectives and approaches to problem solving and spiritual paths and ways of walking through the world. It's complicated. It's not just a UUCL problem, though. It's a modern American problem. As diverse as America is, we have failed to set our egos aside and be inclusive of every person. Here in this community, however, we can be a model for how we want the world to be. And so I don't present you with this complex problem of building community to bring you down and leave you hopeless. Instead, I invite all of you who are gathered here today in this sacred space to be intentional
about drawing from your heart center, the place where your deepest values live, rather than your ego. Mr. Rogers once said, "At the center of the universe is a loving heart that continues to beat and that wants the best for every person. Anything that we can do to help foster the intellect and spirit and emotional growth of our fellow human beings, that is our job. Those of us who have this particular vision must continue against all odds. Life is for service." I believe that at the center of all of us is a loving heart, the heart of the universe continuing to beat. I believe that if we listen closely to that beating, loving heart, then we will realize it beats not just for ourselves, but for a world in which we all can live and grow to our fullest creative potentials. Yesterday, in our small group ministry session, our discussion was centered around Fred Rogers and his suggestion to look for the helpers when things seem frightening. It was amazing to me how hope and connection were multiplied just by talking about all the helpers we had each encountered during the week. The joy in the room and in our hearts was palpable at the end of our conversation. Helping others, instead of disregarding others, multiplies love. Such simple knowledge, but that knowledge was felt more deeply yesterday as we shared. And so I want to throw another ingredient into our community recipe: helpfulness. I don't just mean everyday courtesies like holding the door for each other, although that's important too. I mean complex helpfulness that comes from our hearts and not our egos. I mean the kind of helpfulness that builds powerful communities with strong relationships. A helpfulness that builds the kind of community that can endure conflict, because a bit of spice is inevitable. A helpfulness that provides for the kind of community that is solid enough to include people with all their flavors, so that we are able to create a new and even more delightfully tasting dish, because we've learned how to engage our differences and blend them together instead of tossing them aside for a different dish. Thank you for tolerating my metaphors. I mean a helpfulness that knows the ego might not get everything it wants, and that's okay, because ultimately what we need is each other. I am asking for a helpfulness that is curious and patient and willing to try new things and see how it goes. I am craving a helpfulness that is forgiving, because it knows that mistakes always happen and we can fix them by adjusting the recipe. I mean a helpfulness that asks, is what I'm about to say going to build this community, or is it just serving me? And a helpfulness that questions, who are my actions serving? Only me? Are my actions going to cause harm, or are they serving the community? As we gather here to nurture our spirits and heal the world, let us draw from our heart centers and a commitment to our values that widen the circle of care. So I want to take this moment to be completely transparent with you. Today I'm supposed to be delivering the kickoff to the pledge drive sermon. And certainly that is what I'm doing. Last year I talked about the theology of money, and I heard that you all enjoyed it. It's still on YouTube if you want to check it out. And I became more comfortable with talking about money with y'all. But as your spiritual life director, it is my job to sense the pulse of this congregation and to be helpful. We are in a time like no other. We are coming out of, hopefully, 2 years of a pandemic and learning how to be together again. And what I feel and what I know is this, that we are thrilled, we are full of joy about our being able to be together, to together to welcome in new people and a baby to this sacred space. And so I really wanted to focus on being intentional about being together. I want us to revel in all the joy that being helpful to one another brings. I want us to once again feel fulfilled in each other's company. And I want us to never take it for granted again. I hope that we can be deeply thoughtful and committed about how we move forward so that we don't let our egos burn it down. This takes commitment. And yes, it takes time, it takes the wholeness of who we are, and it takes money. Money, it's in the recipe for sure. But giving money should not feel bad. Giving money to a community that nurtures your soul and heals the world should be rewarding. When we are intentional about how we are together, we should want to give. We should want to support that which supports us. We should want to be helpful in the ways that we can. Giving money should come from the love you have for this community and its potential. Some of you have a lot of money, some of you have a good amount, some of you have a little bit, and some of you have not a dime to spare. And that's all okay. All of us do have skills and creativity and talents and gifts and intelligence of some sort to offer this community recipe. The complexity of who we are is a blessing. We are all unique and autonomous individuals, but we are all interdependent. Interdependence is our reality. It is a scientific fact. And it can certainly spice things up and make this one beautifully interesting world when we honor it and feed it with our love and care and not our egos. We ask those who have money to give from their hearts, to give an amount that feels good and expresses their deepest values. We never ask anyone who doesn't have enough money to fill their own basic needs to give us money. In fact, we have a discretionary fund to help our members who are in desperate need. We value all of the other ingredients that you bring. In this community, we model how we want the rest of the world to be. Building community may seem simple on the surface because we are well aware of the basic ingredients we need to put into it. Love, kindness, truth, justice, time, talents, and treasure. But it is complex when we start to add the flavor, to figure out how to mix it all together, what temperature to cook it at and for how long. Or do we even cook it at all? Because maybe it's Jell-O and we put it in the fridge. The important thing is, I'm glad somebody's laughing. We are committed to figuring it out together. Nobody's actually perfected this recipe, to be sure. But we can certainly improve upon the one that exists now. More helpers with deeply complex flavors, less fiery egos that burn us down. Again, words from Mr. Rogers. I believe that at the center of the universe there dwells a loving spirit who longs for all that's best in all of creation. A spirit who knows the great potential of each planet as well as each person. And little by little, will love us into being more than we ever dreamed possible. That loving spirit would rather die than give up on any one of us. Let us embody that loving spirit. Let us not give up. Let us stay intentional and committed. Let our heart centers, our deepest values, guide us as we decide what and how much to give. Let us build a community that fulfills the potential of a loving spirit and reaches out to the rest of the world. Thank you.
And we have now come upon the moment when we can share our treasures with this community, knowing that its higher cause will be one which will serve and enrich us all. May your gifts be a blessing upon this community which draws from an abundance of love. Our ushers will pass the plates for your offering to this community while we sing hymn number 318, We Would Be One.
All right, go ahead and rise on up for me. We're going to sing 318, We Would Be One. And I'm going to try not to sing harmony. We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that our cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow, a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which finds our hearts and points us on our way. We pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free. Thank you. You may be seated.
And thanks for multitasking. And now for the really special moment of the service that we've been waiting for, to welcome a baby into our community and to commit ourselves to building a loving and caring community in which he can grow. This is a baby dedication ceremony for Axel Vernon Polk, the son of Kelly Justice and Jonathan Polk. This ceremony is both ancient and timeless. From the earliest days of recorded history, parents have brought their children to a special place to share their joy and dedication with family and friends. We have this ceremony in public to mark the fact that we all have a responsibility for the care and nurturing of every child. It is our task to give them a world of peace and justice in which to grow. It is our responsibility to share with them our ideals and hopes. If we want our children to be compassionate and sensitive to the world around them, we should be charitable and kind. If we want our children to learn that conflicts may be resolved peacefully, we should not humiliate our children, but rather guide them with respect and mercy. If we want our children to be tolerant and fair, they should not hear us making demeaning or derogatory comments about people different than us. A child treated with respect will respect himself and others. But perhaps what we can do best as grown-ups is to learn from our children the zest and wonder of life, with which all children have when they are new to this world. Our dedication today will include the element of water. Traditionally, the element of water has played a symbolic part in this ceremony, for all life has arisen from the water, and it is through water that life is sustained as it flows forward. Traditionally, also, this is the time to recognize our children by name, for it is by name that each of us is acknowledged as a unique and separate person. The flower we shall present to Axel is also symbolic of the individuality we wish to affirm. And now Axel and his parents, Kelly and Jonathan, are here, and we are ready. This dedication ceremony is symbolic and sacramental. It springs from your hearts and is an expression of your deepest desires and highest expectation. This child has come into the world at your invitation and not his own. May your sense of responsibility be equal to the promise that is his. Parenthood is a most sacred trust. As parents, recognize no duty to be greater than that of providing the security and order that an atmosphere of love can give. Every child is entitled to be received into loving arms and to be guided with loving care during the years of growth. He has a just claim upon his parents and upon others entrusted with his care, to a sensitive understanding of his needs and to all that is essential for the fullest development of his body and mind and heart. Therefore, keep yourself and your child from developing fixed, rigid beliefs. Allow him full access to all knowledge. Encourage him to develop the habit of independent judgment and safeguard his right to the joy of adventure and the thrill of discovery. See, he's born to be wild, so he's ready. Encourage Axel to develop an unprejudiced and curious mind and a generous spirit. I ask that you give your son not only permission, but encouragement to develop his own ideas of God. Let him decide what is of ultimate value. And remember, a religious quest is deepened when done in community, and supported when done in this loving community. Axel should be encouraged to explore many spiritual beliefs, remembering that not any one doctrine can ever offer all the answers to the mystery of why we are here. What I ask for Axel is what I ask for children of all communities, that while developing in him a sense of his own integrity, we help him to develop a wholesome respect for the spirit, minds, and feelings of others. Upon you rests the sacred joy of nurturing this young life through maturity, guided by loving recollections, worthy aspirations, and a joyful heart. To this end, you, Kelly and Jonathan, now bear witness to your intentions. Do you promise that to the best of your ability you will nurture and instruct this child in the way of right living for himself and for humankind? Please say we do. Would you like to speak, Kelly? Kelly has prepared something for Axel and the congregation.
To my last son, my sweet baby boy. Thank you for the gift to allow my spirit to know and guide yours. You're a profound gift that I am humbled to have received. I promise you, Axel, to always be your biggest source of encouragement, peace, and truth. I promise to be an example of kindness and strength. I promise to help you investigate your passions, explore your talents, and of course, show them off. I promise to be quick to listen and slow to judge. I promise to celebrate whatever you find to be your spirit of life. I promise to both give and demand respect and consent. And I promise to show you the coolest music and sing to you even when you don't want me to.
Kelly and Jonathan have chosen godparents for Axel to nurture and guide him, and occasionally provide him relief from his parents, and obviously to also bring the spit rag and wipe him up. They have asked Mark and April to play this special role in Elliot's life. Will Mark and April please come forward? Oh, what did I say? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. In Axel's life. Thank you. There's always a mistake. Let me remind all of you of an old Jewish proverb. In time of trouble, go to the friend of your father. Go to the friend of your mother. From this ancient wisdom comes the idea of godparents, special people who dedicate themselves to watching out for the welfare of others' children. It is a noble and loving tradition to which you commit yourselves this day. In our society, it is not possible for even the most loving and capable parents to raise a child alone. If our children are to become loving and independent adults, they need the wisdom, counsel, love, and support of many adult friends. You have been asked by Kelly and Jonathan to accept a special responsibility. Therefore, I will ask also of you, do you promise that to the best of your ability you will nurture and instruct Axel in the way of right living for himself and for humankind? Thank you. And do you, this gathered and chosen congregation, do you promise that to the best of your ability you will nurture and instruct this child in the way of right living for himself and for humankind? If so, please now say, we do.
We do.
All right. You all have some printed words in front of you. Please read them with me.
Axel.
Axel, as you are wrapped in your parents' arms, so may your life be wrapped in justice and righteousness. As your eyes are filled with wonder when you gaze at the world, so too may you be filled with wonder at the everyday miracles of life. As your hand tightly grasps your parent's hand, so may you grasp hold of learning and grow in knowledge and wisdom. As we embrace you today, so may you embrace this community and call it your own. Now, Kelly and Jonathan, will you please name this child?
Axel Vernon Polk.
Axel, with the touch of this water on your brow and on your cheeks and on your lips, the traditional emblem of the rite of consecration, and in the gift of this rose, a symbol of the unfolding of a beautiful life, I welcome you and dedicate you to the service of righteousness and love. Please rise, and let's sing a joyful song to Axel and his parents, hymn number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth.
And the chorus goes something like this. Source of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise. For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the laws which from our birth over and around us lies. Source of
Our closing words are titled Belonging by Rosemary Watola Traumer. And if it's true we are alone together, the way blades of grass are alone but exist as a field. Sometimes I feel it, the green fuse that ignites us, the wild thrum that unites us, an inner hum that reminds us of our shared humanity. Just as 35 trillion red blood cells join in one body to become one blood, just as 136,000 notes make up one symphony, alone as we are, our small voices weave into the one big conversation. Our actions are essential to the one infinite story of what it is to be alive. When we feel alone, we belong to the grand communion of those who sometimes feel alone. We are the dust that hopes, a rising of dust, a thrill of dust, the dust that dances in the light with all other dust, the dust that makes the world. Please join me as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world.
Go out into the world now, carrying with you a loving spirit in your heart, one that will build and not burn, help and not harm. Remember, you are worthy, you are loved, and you are a blessing. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to have some cake that we got for Axel and his parents, and take some time to celebrate together.